Hey everybody, Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel, and this is a special edition as we are going to take a look at the year ahead in this astrological weather forecast. And so a much larger time frame. And so when I look at the year ahead, I'm only going to look at just the biggest energy affecting this year coming up that will be running in the background, and mainly just stuff from the outer planets interacting with one another. So it's a big, long kind of energy that plays out through the year. And for anyone who saw my yearly forecast last year around this time, which is actually right when I got onto YouTube and started it as a channel on YouTube, my blog, I talked mainly about the Saturn Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, and the fact that Jupiter was going into Capricorn at the same time and would later on in the year catch up to Saturn and Pluto and conjunct them also. And that was the main driver of last year, that was the main energy of last year, was this the Pluto Saturn conjunction and Jupiter joining them in Capricorn. And that, just a couple points here first before we get into 2021. Now, one thing to remember is that these energies of the outer planets are moving on a societal and greater level. So we are all along for the ride, is my point here. This is not something personal. This is something impersonal. This is something that's collective for us as a race. And therefore, the energy I'm going to talk about is intense energy. And it doesn't really have that much to do with you on a personal level, yet it will affect you every day because it's affecting society. So my point is, these outer planets are interacting with one another. There can be some difficult times that all of us are going through together. And last year, 2020, was obviously a perfect example of that. The Pluto and Saturn conjunction, joined by a very weak Jupiter in Capricorn, we knew that there was going to be restrictions that were going to cause great changes in society. We did not know at the time exactly what that was, although it was already a brew. And obviously, on a global level, the coronavirus went right into that energy. Restrictions, transformation of the way we lived, heavy-handed authority having to be the one to be the force behind the restrictions and the new ways of dealing with things that was transforming the way society was functioning. And then a very weak Jupiter unable to help. And so we have this very intense, restricted energy all year. And it brought up some really deep things. That's what Pluto does. Pluto has been in Capricorn since about 2008, 7, somewhere in that zone. It's been many years. And as I've said over and over, when Pluto goes through a sign, it is showing us the shadow side of that sign and everything that that sign represents. Capricorn represents structure, the structures of our society, and just how there was a lot of weakness inherently within those structures that Pluto has exposed. And so Capricorn, which also Saturn, also represents structure. That's why Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. So had this very, very intense look for many years now, for 12 years or so, of looking into where our societies are crumbling within their structure, where they're decaying, where they're dying, where they need to be reformed, where new creative solutions need to come in and transform or evolutionize what is going on. So last year, we got that very, very heavy dose of the ways that one of the ways that kind of energy can manifest. And so the whole world has been affected on all kinds of levels by that Pluto-Saturn conjunction. And as I've said before, many times too, transits, of which one of them is that Saturn-Pluto conjunction, that's a transit, that they tell an unfolding story. That we can look at what, in this case, society is at, where it's at, and look at the transits that are going on and see how the current ones fit the situation and how the next ones are going to take that story and continue to unfold it for us and tell the next chapter of the story. So that is what we're looking at coming into 2021, is just a time of great unrest from all this that really is going to be marked by, just like 2020, one long-term transit that's perfecting this year and will hit 3 times. And the transit of this year, just like Pluto conjunct Saturn was last year, is Saturn square Uranus. Saturn has just gone into Aquarius, fixed sign, fixed air, and Uranus is in Taurus, fixed earth. And right now even, the square is already in effect. The energy of that square is already starting to build. They're within like 5 degrees of one another. And so that square is starting to get closer and closer to its first exact hit. So Saturn square Uranus is going to be the main aspect of this year. And we're looking at a cycle that runs somewhere in the mid-40s of years, 44, 45 years or so, of a cycle that started with a conjunction at 30 degrees, critical degree, last degree of Sagittarius, back in February of 1988. Saturn conjuncted Uranus. Then subsequently we had a first quarter square in July of 1999 when Saturn was in Taurus and Uranus was in Aquarius, the exact opposite of what we have right now, 21 years later. Then in 2008, during the height of like the beginning of a very divisive energy coming into the United States, when we had the Occupy versus Tea Party movement start, we had Saturn opposite Uranus, so like it had reached the halfway point of this cycle. So now here we are about 12 or so years later, and we are running into the third quarter square of that conjunction, and it's now going to be Saturn square Uranus again, and flip-flop from the first quarter square, where they're in the opposite signs, bringing up a lot of fixed energy, a lot of like stubborn, hard to move energy. And so that is going to be the main aspect. It will hit 3 times this year exact, and it will be the main storyteller of what's going on in the background of society, just like the Pluto-Saturn conjunction one was last year. So, what is Saturn square Uranus all about? It's all about the tension of being held back has reached a breaking point and no longer can be held back. And it will break out in different, quick, and upsetting ways. Uranus is going to come in and shake things up. Uranus in Taurus is already shaking things up when you think about what we know about what's going on with the Earth and its climate, and what's going on with finance and banking and international money and just things like that Taurus actually rules. Uranus is already showing, creating a lot of upsetting energy there. And now Saturn is going to come in, representing all those structures that have been shown to be very weak in some points by Pluto in the last 12 years. And Saturn now going into Aquarius has reached a higher octave where it realizes that yes, the structures that it's built do have weak spots, and if it doesn't want the whole thing to crumble apart, it needs to allow some change in. But it's very difficult, especially in the fixed signs. It's very difficult to let go of the things that need to be let go of, even though it's known that it's necessary to let go of things to allow change in. So really what's happened is it's the same as if it was a transit for a person. When that energy builds up like that and it's not being consciously done, then the structure's going to fall apart some other way. And Uranus is going to bring in that other way through shocking kind of events. So it's like there's just a great amount of stress, and now it's just built to the breaking point. And what is going to happen this year is it is going to break in several areas, and there will be a lot of chaotic energy. There'll be like things that change very rapidly in society across all levels that'll leave a vacuum that will quickly be filled by something else. And it may not even last very long. It may continue to turn over rapidly. But there's just going to be different groups with different philosophies battling one another for dominance, and pushing their leader or leaders to be the ones who have control of situations. There's going to be just like this struggle to take, to take over what is going to rise out of what's falling apart, basically. And so it can be a very chaotic energy. It can feel like, like everyone is pretty much almost on their own in a certain kind of way. But the thing is, in this energy also almost requires people to choose a side. It's like, it's just such a two different ways of looking at things that many times, everyone is forced eventually to make a choice, because the tides of time and history and collectively what we're doing as a race has brought us to that point. So, and so, it's very interesting because, like, it's outer planets, so they don't care about the individual that much. And, the Aquarian energy also is the same thing, that like the groups and collective and what's going on in society has much more importance than what the individual does. So, we are bound to see some great changes this year. We have like literally dozens and dozens of countries in the world right now that are in states of political and social unrest. And so we may see some great changes in many of these countries politically. We may see things move very rapidly after being stuck for a long time, and that new power holders may come in these situations and take over. So we're looking at some really, really big changes coming in that are based basically on the sense of just change, that we've backed ourselves into a point where, because of this stubborn energy and the inability to let go of a lot of things in the past, that that it's just going to have to happen, that things are going to have to basically start to crumble apart so that new ways can be born. And so, like, in many ways it can be very exciting on that level, on the Uranian Aquarian level of, like, this shows there's going to be a lot of like technology, and that could be a part of that, and that the collective is very, very important in rather than the individual. So there's a lot of like just this energy that's going to have us literally have to make some decision about where we're going individually within what's happening in society. And so it's interesting because when you look at Saturn Uranus in the past, when this last conjunction in Sagittarius was at the height of the conservative movement, when George Bush Sr. was about to be elected president, and this very strong religious right, which is Sagittarius, had a very strong grip on the United States. So, you can see, just based on that imprint, that, there's a strong, central, nationalistic, almost like fascist type energy can be associated with this energy signature, that, that the revolutionary energy that Uranus and Aquarius is bringing in can quickly, fixate onto like it's my way or you're the enemy kind of energy. So, and so we're dealing with some very intense energy on that level, that where like you're with us or against us, and it's a very, like I said, it can be very nationalistic, that kind of energy, and so we're bound to see a lot of the structures of society change rapidly. And you know, and this, you know, the Uranus thing also can bring in very impulsive, even violent behavior from groups who consider themselves in a revolution, basically, that they're rebelling against the things in society that they feel that are no longer right and want to recreate a society. So you're going to have at least two disparate ways of like looking at that and possibly forcing people to choose some side. It's, you know, it's interesting because it also, this cycle not only seems to be tied into like the strength of like a lot of right nationalist kind of energy, but it also is very tied into technology too. And that's the Aquarian part of it again. Like, just like when you think about the conjunction at 30 degrees Sagittarius back in 1988, that was right about when the internet was just getting ready to first be launched into the public, that they just were getting browsers set up, that kind of thing. So, and then in 1999, when the first square hit, that was the top of the .com type era, where just like these companies were being bought and sold overnight just based on ideas that were supposedly worth millions and millions of dollars, and found out that many of them were not. And then we go to the opposition, and at that time, we start to see how social media is used to get like the Occupy and the Tea Party movements going, and it started to create a lot of this age of disinformation. And that's the strong-arming part of Pluto that was coming in there too, with Pluto going into Capricorn, the coercion of like those who are in authority. So some real interesting energy tied up in this. And what's interesting too, at the beginning, the technology sector was really the new kid on the block. And now, you know, since about late 80s, they've become kind of what their enemy was at the time. And that was the old authoritarian guard. Now those technology companies have basically become that. Here we are, you know, 30 years later in this cycle. So, and so like this third quarter square is a time where whatever is, you know, going to disseminate out there from all this last 30 years of this energy of this cycle is going to just ripple through society and change many things, many structures very rapidly. So that's going to be our main energy of the year. It's interesting, like, you know, when you look at the main the outer planets, the outer six, I'm going to include Chiron actually and Jupiter this year. There's not a lot of change going on now that Saturn and Jupiter have gone into Aquarius. Jupiter is going to accelerate, you know, and in Aquarius it does have a little bit of dignity, you know, it has some triplicity rulership. So definitely feeling a lot better than last year in Capricorn when it was in fall. But in the mid-year, around May, I think it's going to go into Pisces, which is one of the signs Jupiter is really strong in. What's interesting about that, though, is we're kind of getting out of the age of Pisces. So remember, like, all this change that's been going on, we're right in the middle of the cusp of the age of Aquarius starting the age of Pisces, a 250-year period that started 125 years ago. So, you know, here we are right in the middle of all this. And, you know, Jupiter goes into Pisces this year when you can really feel the energy being handed off to the Aquarian model, and that the Piscean model is becoming less and less strong. But Jupiter in Pisces is really strong, and it's like, and it really is wanting to, take care of, in that level of society, take care of people and society in a compassionate way. But it can also like fire up, the religious zealotry and things like that too. So it'll really be interesting to see. It'll go into Pisces for a couple months and then retrograde back into Aquarius for most of the year again. So it is mainly going to be in Aquarius, and Saturn will be in Aquarius all year. It's got a 2.5 year period in there. Uranus will be in Taurus all year and has several years to go in Taurus. And remember, that's all about the changes happening in the earth, these rapid changes in the climate, these storms, these massive storms and fires and things like that. That's Uranus is going to continue to shake up a lot of the things in the earth while it's in Taurus. And it's also going to continue to shake up finance stuff, where people have seen that, the money is too concentrated in certain hands, and that there's got to be a new way of dealing with that. So Uranus is going to continue to take on that. And of course, since that's part of the square to Saturn, that will be part of what is going on this year too, from that Saturn-Uranus square, the continuation of the pointing out of the disparity in distribution of resource and money in between those who are very wealthy and everybody else, pretty much. So that's really been exposed by the Pluto in Capricorn, which will continue to do so. And remember, Pluto in Capricorn is ruled by that Saturn. So Saturn's now in Aquarius, so it's like, yeah, it's time to make some of these changes in this system, or it's not going to last much longer. So very interesting there. And then Neptune will continue to be in Pisces, where it's strong, and that definitely is the great spiritual change that's also going on, that many people have found a deeper spirituality from these times, and so that will continue. And then Pluto will continue to be in Capricorn, still has about 3 or 4 years to go in Cap, and it is going, closer and closer and closer to the United States Pluto return in 2023. So the United States is in for some great transformation. And, it's already occurring. It's obvious. We're in the middle of it. It's hard to have perspective, but it's pretty obvious. The whole structure of the way the society is done in the United States is in the midst of a great change right now. And then Chiron will continue to be in Aries. And as I said before, it's difficult. But what Chiron is saying in Aries is we need to be responsible individually, each one of us, for our own healing. Chiron is actually the body that goes between Saturn and Uranus. So that may be the key, actually, to finding a lot of the solutions here, is that each of us need to take responsibility for our own healing and wounds and things like that. And by dealing with that, we can maybe start to shift the way things are looked at in society. So we have another really challenging year in front of us. Like what started last year with this Pluto and Saturn conjunction is really going to be acted upon this year. It's going to be very forceful action, a lot of impulsive, quick acts by groups and individuals that could quickly change things and leave a void where somebody else or something else comes in and is able to have some influence. So there's going to be a lot of things changing in our society. It's not going to be an easy ride for the human race collectively. And it will affect our individual lives, just like the COVID did. And It's, as I've said, if your job was taken away because of something in society, well, you're not the only one. There's a lot of other people too. There's not some easy solution on an individual level. We are being asked by the cosmos to change the way we do things in a very basic way right now. We're being shown that the structures that we built are outdated and no longer work. They've run their course, and they're now a hindrance to where we need to go, and actually a threat to our survival. And the change has to occur, and it's going to occur. And we have to either embrace it and ride with it, or we're going to just be choosing to suffer ourselves. And it's not just you. It's not all about you. This is about all of us together. So we need to be supportive of one another and continue to feed that great spiritual awakening that many people are feeling at that Neptune in Pisces, and just continue to heal those things in ourselves that get reflected out into society and our leaders, and then all those things will start to change too. All right, this is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. Become a follower on YouTube. Please spread the blog around to anyone you know that would be interested in it. I'm on Spotify. I'm on a couple other of the podcasts too. I think Apple Podcasts is one of them. So you just search for Astrological Winds channel on them, and you'll find them. Like I said, become a follower. My email is matthuE823@gmail.com. I'm available for all kinds of readings. A lot of people have a lot of questions right now in their lives because of the times and where they want to go. So we can do predictive readings, natal readings, elections, all kinds of different stuff, fixed star readings if you're looking for your deeper soul purpose, things like that. So email me, matthuE823@gmail.com, and we can talk prices. Classes are going for beginning astrology. There's 5 classes up, including all the signs of the zodiac. They can be taken individually for $25 a piece, and I'll send you the Dropbox files. They're on Dropbox right now. Or if you're a student, they're $20 a piece. And if you want to just do them as a student, then do them sequentially. If you're just interested in individual classes, because you just want to learn a little bit more about your sign or whatever, then that's available too, just as individual classes. So I think that covers all the self-promotion. And so next Astrological Winds channel will either be the January forecast, because there's a lot going on in January, including the United States inauguration, things like that. So I may do that individually. A lot of times I do the monthly one with the weekly one, the first month of the week. There's a lot going on in the first month of the, or first week of the month. Got that backwards. First week of the month too. So I may actually just fire off 3 straight blogs here. This is the first one for the year. Then I'll do the January monthly one, and then I'll do the weekly one for the first full week in January. But it's still possible I may combine the monthly and the weekly, but that'll end up being a pretty long blog. So I'm thinking separation might be better. Anyway, so so we've got the continuation of the history that we're living in, just like your parents and their parents lived in their histories. We're living in ours now, and so we're making history together, and a lot of things are changing. So we've got to all just hold on to the ride here and do the best we can at supporting one another through these tumultuous times. Okay, until the next Astrological Winds channel blog, this is Matt Lawton signing off. You have a happy, happy new year, despite whatever outer circumstances are going on. your happiness is always in here.